moved here. And from the moment I met Sarah, see, when we talk about churches being different, we're trying to do things differently. I'm not here to build my kingdom. There is a desire to have a 10,000 member church. The desire is to change the world. And the only way you change the world is you do it the way Jesus did it. He found 12 people who were willing to be used. 12 people who were willing to pay a price. And then he invested in them. And so to me, that's my point in ministry. That's the purpose of leadership and ministry, was to let God show you people who have something in them, which is every one of us, by the way. All right, you in your life, where God has you, what you've been through, God has wrought a story with your life. Okay? And I want to be a church that we're a part of that story. Okay? That we enable people to make it, whether it's to be a friend, to go through the hard times, to hurt with each other, to pray for one another, to fight for one another, to go through the darkness together, the valley of the shadow of death. Those things are real. But who will go through you with it? What pastor can you call, all hours of the day and night? What kind of friends can you call like that? To build a church like that. That we invest and believe and empower each other to find God's purpose in our lives. And one of those things is just to be able to see people the way God sees them. Okay? Not the way we see them, not through our prejudices or our hurts or our past or our expectations, but what does God see in people? And the first time Sarah walked in, I was like, oh my goodness. If there's one thing that I know is how to identify that, that diamond in the rough. Okay, lack of a better term. That there's something different there. There's something that God has his hand on. And Sarah had it. And when I met Sarah, she was going through a rough time. According to her testimony, it's probably the worst time of her life. But in that moment, you could look at her and look into her face and eyes, and you could see a spirit that was different. You could see something that God was doing in her, that there's a reason for everything she'd been through, that God was going to use it to build her, to shape her, to his purposes were tied to that. And so I want to be sure that in you, in Sarah, and in all of us, that we see each other the way God does, and we help each other in our own walks with God. Sarah has I think she's realizing more and more every day how many sermons she comes up with every day, how many things she sees in people every day, the way God does things, and it's just it's not natural, it's different. And Sarah is different. And I want to just give her, as whether it's Sarah or Justin or you, here's the platform. All right? I don't have to be on it every day, every week. Because I'm here to build you. And that's the truth. I'm here to help you. And we're here to help each other. And Sarah, I believe in Sarah. I believe in her. I know what's in her. And I see what God's doing. And I just want to pray for her before we begin, okay? Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you for this young lady. Lord, I thank you for this woman of God. And Lord, when she stands up here to speak, Lord, I pray, God, that you won't let any anxiety or fear or doubt creep in from the enemy. But God, that she will just absolutely forget everything and everyone. And God, just absolutely speak. God, no boundaries, nothing to hold her back. She ain't got to worry that it's perfect theologically speaking. But God, when it's perfect is when she delivers the message that you give. So God, I just pray for her. Lord, I pray your spirit will absolutely empower her. God, flow through her, fill her, and Lord, overpower her. God, that when she's done, she'll look at Jeff and say, Jeff, I don't remember what I said. And I'll say that's exactly where you needed to be, because God had full control. So God, I pray for each person who's listening today. Like I said, Lord, we don't know each other's story. But God, I pray that in what is said today, God, it will bring healing. God, it will bring revelation. It will bring us an ability to come closer to you, God, to change things in our own life. I think all of us have grown up under pressures, expectations, and those things can absolutely destroy us. God, we've grown up watching Christians who, the reason a lot of people aren't Christians today, they saw what Christians were. They wanted nothing to do with it. God, I pray that through Sarah's sermon and through each of us here, God, that people will say, you know what? I'm going to give Christianity another chance. I'm going to give God another chance. I'm going to give myself another chance. So God, I ask you right now just to clear all out of Sarah's mind. And God, just speak in the way that only you can. And we give it to you in the name of Jesus. Amen. All right, Lily, it's all yours. I'm moving that. Oh, you want to?
It's going to sound weird, but...
No. You got to talk on a microphone?
No, I literally
gonna talk
prayed
loud?
outside. I was like, God, fill me with the Spirit as soon as I step off onto the podium. And then, like,
There you are.
the devil was
So it
like,
means you got to
"Okay,
really
step
loud.
off the podium."
All right. You got it.
Anyway. I'm going to apologize ahead of time. As you guys know, I am not a very good public speaker. And I usually pick one face in the crowd and stare at that one person. I don't have like any particular reason why. So most of the time it's somebody I don't know. So I'm going to apologize. I'm not looking at you directly on purpose.
Man, damn.
All right, most of you know my story. I'm talking about the perfect life today. Most of you know that I kind of grew up with what seemed to be a perfect life. I had, I didn't have to worry about, money or anything like that. My dad had a good job. My mom got to stay home and take care of us. I didn't struggle really with much. We moved around a lot, but I had no problem making friends. I had good grades in school. I always was involved and had a lot going on. And I had that life that everybody wished they had. I didn't struggle with my husband had a lot of different struggles than I did. Where he would would wake up and wasn't sure where his next meal was going to come from or things like that. And I didn't have those struggles. I had the life that everybody seemed to want, the life that my husband wants right now that he thinks is going to solve the problems. That if you have money, if you have time, if you have then so I had that life that everybody wanted. When I moved here, I would laugh because the house that we moved to was my parents designed it and had it built. So when we were still in New Jersey, it was being built. And when I moved here, I found out everybody in the small town of Landrum had driven by my monster house, is what they called it. They all knew where I lived, which was a little creepy. But, they all, so when I moved here, everybody was like, oh, you live in the monster house. You live in the monster house. And I was like, I don't live in a mansion. They're like, do you have a pool? And I was like, yes. Okay. And it was, it was a mansion. It was, and everybody else, would struggle with, the problems that most people struggled with. And they looked at me and they wanted my life. They wanted parents that were still together at the time. And they wanted, to have friends. And they wanted to not have to worry about money or have to get a job so that they could help their parents pay rent. So I had that life that everybody strived for. But I came to find out very quickly that that can be a very lonely place to be. Just because, I didn't have a lot of people to talk to about the things I would go through. I would talk to somebody about my parents fighting or something that was happening at home. And their parents have been divorced since they were little. So my parents fighting is not like a big deal. I need to stop complaining. I've got a great life. I tried to talk to one of my best friends, and I didn't even. I started to tell her about the things I was going through, but I couldn't because I realized that her dad was dying from a degenerative brain disease, and her mom was an alcoholic. So why should I complain about my life to her? So I ended up finding myself very lonely because I felt like I had nobody really to talk to very much about everything that was going on. And because regardless of how perfect your life seems, pain is still pain, and hurt is still hurt. And my parents fighting or my dog dying or whatever, it still hurts just as much as when somebody else's does. It's just, different kinds of pain, different kinds of struggles. My husband grew up, like I said, with, the struggles that everybody can relate with. When you hear that, somebody doesn't have food or somebody doesn't have whatever, you immediately sympathize with them. You're like, oh my gosh, how can I help you? And then when you see that executive CEO who's fighting with his wife, you immediately kind of blow it off. You're like, they'll get over it, or what? You're not as sympathetic, because it's hard to sympathize with somebody who seems to have everything, who seems to have it. Well, they'll get it together. They can pay for counseling, or they can pay for this, or they, and it takes away from the fact that you're still in pain. You're still feeling that pain. And that monster house that I had, I would go for walks for hours at a time. My mom remembers. I would get mad because my parents took my phone, so I thought I was smart, and I'd go for a walk without my phone and be gone for hours so they would panic. I was interesting. But, I would walk back after they, and come in the house, and, they weren't panicking, and I was disappointed. But I would walk back and I'd look at that monster house that we had that everybody wanted. I never wanted to go inside. Just, not necessarily, my parents loved me. My parents took care of me, and I've always known that I'm loved. I've always known that I'm cared for.
Amen.
But the idea of having this big, beautiful life and having this house, this monster house that we have, I felt like it immediately, when people saw that, shut me out. Didn't want to hear about my problems, didn't want to hear about what I was going through, didn't want to hear about any of my pain, because look at my house. I hated that house. I really did. My dad was always talking about, like who's going to inherit it or whatever, and I'm like, I don't want it. It has a lot of bad, negative things from my memories where that house immediately made me feel like my problems didn't mean anything to anybody. And it was, hard. And, I really couldn't talk to anybody about anything. You wanted to talk to your family. But when you're a teenager, you don't talk to your parents, because what do they know? Anyway, so I was trying to think about, what is perfection? If I didn't have a perfect life, even though it seemed that way, what is being perfect? What does that mean? And I mean, most of us have grown up. We had somebody in mind that we held to a high standard. That was our idol, if you will, or somebody that we looked up to. We thought they did no wrong, And then the day that they do something that is wrong, it shatters your world, because you don't even understand how there could be good in the world if the person that you thought was absolutely flawless, was perfect, it is human now all of a sudden, and they're, whether it be a parent or a pastor or somebody, you see that they're not perfect all of a sudden, and it shatters your whole sense of, because you tried to be like this person, you wanted to be like this person, so it shatters your whole idea of like what do I do if they're not perfect? Then who am I supposed to strive to be like? And I've realized that this idea of perfection and this vision of perfection is carried a lot into churches. You go to church on Sunday and you're dressed up and you act like everything's okay and shake hands and tell everybody you're good and you're doing well, and really at home you're not doing all that well, but you've got to act like you are. I've realized that how many children could be damaged from this. And my point being is that there was a story that I was told about a woman who she had that image of church. She was perfect, and she did everything good, and she did everything right, and everybody wanted to be her because she was just ahead of everything. Whatnot. She'd go home, and our kids would see her at church and acting that way. Well, she'd go home, and all of a sudden she was angry, and she was stressed, and the kids don't know where that comes from. You were just fine at church, you were acting like everything was fine, and all of a sudden you're angry, you're cussing, you're yelling, you know, is that how God is? Is that what Christianity is? Is this fake, like pretending, just putting on a mask, pretending like everything's okay? Then going home and yelling at your kids, yelling at your wife, you know, and I realize that there's so much damage that can be caused by that. The amount of people that run from God, most of the people that run from God and run from church are from churches. I was in that situation. I have been raised in church, and I have been to so many churches that were difficult, where I felt like I was pretending. There were days when I would feel bad and couldn't feel like I could put that face on and act like everything was okay, so we didn't go to church on those days because we couldn't fake it. And I knew that wasn't right. I knew that something wasn't right about that if you had a relationship with God, you're supposed to fellowship and talk to each other about what you're going through, you know. And I realized that there's something not right, and I was almost at that point where I'm like, is God like this? Is this how God is? Is this what He wants from us? That we're supposed to go fake it and pretend like everything's okay? You know, and that's not the answer, you know. You know, going back to what is perfection, we're not perfect, we all know that. But we seem to hold ourselves to higher standards. We seem to try to do things. You know, I wrote an article recently about a good mom and trying to be the perfect mom, and you can't win. You can't. There's nothing you can do. At the end of the day, no matter how much you've been cleaning, the house is still going to be messy. After we're honest. There's no way. I will be vacuuming the floor while my kids are throwing graham crackers right behind me. I can't. I won't. There's no way for us to be perfect. And, you know, going back to my life a little bit, you know, I struggled so much with trying to identify with people and trying to get people to listen to me that I got to a point where I wished something would happen in my life that people could sympathize with me and want to hear what I was going through. And, you know, I wished that I could go through something difficult so that people would listen to me, so that people could understand why I'm in pain. And it got frustrated, but, you know, and so I started making stupid decisions, you know. I started doing dumb things and putting myself in dumb situations just because I felt alone. I'm sorry, Mimi, I was drinking, I was smoking weed and all that good stuff. Again, I'm sorry. But, you know, I was doing all these dumb things, putting myself in stupid situations. And I didn't realize that, like, that God, like, that I could have relied on God for that loneliness. And I always wondered, you know, well, they say God knows what you're going through. God knows what you're going through. He knows what I'm going through. Why doesn't He do something? Why doesn't He do anything about it? You know, He knows that I'm struggling, and He knows that I'm hurting. Why can't He just get rid of it? Why is He letting me go through all these things? You know, as my life got harder and harder and harder after I graduated high school, when I started going through a lot of things, I was questioning why? Why? If He loves me the way He says He loves me, why would He let me do all these things? Why would He let me go through all this stuff? And I realized, going back to my article, I wrote in there a story about my children, who very recently, Desi dumped some water on the floor. I was cleaning it up. As I was cleaning it up, he throws glass all over it. Like, drops the glass into the shower. And I'm panicking, freaking out. I'm crying, trying to keep them out of the kitchen so I can clean it up. And of course, they're interested. They're, you know, what happened? I don't understand. You know, they're looking at it. They're pretty. They want to look at the pretty glass pieces on the floor. I feel so bad because I'm yelling at them and getting them out, and they're crying because they want to come in the kitchen. They're like, why can't I come in the kitchen? Why? I don't understand. I understand that that glass is going to cut them, that they're going to get hurt. And I cry with them. I've been struggling a lot lately because I realized that it's difficult being a mom, knowing that, you know, I was just actually telling them about the fact that when you're a mom, I think the hardest thing is being frustrated with something you love so much and knowing that they don't understand, that it's not their fault.
That's right.
You know, it's not my kid's fault. They don't understand that glass is going to hurt them. They don't get it. They don't see it. They don't know about pain or morality or any of that. So, and I can't explain it to them. There's no way I can explain the science behind whatever. But they don't understand that that's going to cause some pain. And I cry because it breaks my heart to see them upset. It breaks my heart to see them hurting. And I understand. They just want to look at the pieces. They just want to learn. But they can't because it'll hurt them. And it's the same way with God. I love the verse I was telling Jeff earlier. Jesus wept. And the thing is the reason why, I used to wonder, I'm like, why did Jesus, this is when Lazarus died, and the woman came to him and was crying, just bawling and saying, he's dead. You don't understand, he's dead, you can't do anything. And he wept with her. He knew he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead. So why was he crying if he knew that what he was about to do? He didn't weep because he was upset that Lazarus was dead. He wept because he felt her pain.
Amen.
He understood, and she didn't understand what was going to happen.
Amen.
And he felt so sorry and so hurt at her pain. But he couldn't explain to her what was about to happen.
That's right.
He couldn't explain to her what his death was going to do, and the fact that he would be able to work a miracle. He just wept with her because he did understand her pain. And he does the same thing with us, in the fact that we cry and we go, why, God, why? And he cries with us. He really does.
Amen.
I love the verse, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. It's probably one of my favorite verses, and I was always told that it meant, you know, when somebody dies, they go to heaven and we can be comforted by that. But to me, it's always meant you're crying and he's comforting you. He's like, I'm sorry. He cries with you and it's
Amen.
like, I'm sorry that you're
Amen.
going through this. I'm sorry that you're hurting, but I promise I know what this is going to hold. I would love to take this pain off of you, but I need you to trust me.
Amen.
And so, you know, I've been trying to kind of pinpoint what perfection is. And why we strive so hard to be perfect when it's an impossible standard that we're never going to make. I was thinking back again to, you know, church and how we had to have that perfect image and how we had to act like everything was okay, everything was all well. Had to dress up and had to be proper and everything like that. There's a reason I dress this way. And I was trying to think back to what the excuse really was when I asked when I was younger, well, why do we have to dress up? I don't feel like it. Why do we have to dress up? I was always given the answer, we're in God's house. That's why. We are in God's house. This is where God is, and we need to respect his house. But I wanted to go back into the history of that, because I was trying to figure out where that originated from, where that thought originated from. You can go ahead to the next slide. All right, so I don't know if any of you guys know about the veil. This was probably my favorite part of the Easter story that doesn't talk about. Alright, it says, you shall make a veil of blue and purple and scarlet material, and fine and twisted linen, and it shall be made with, I can't say that word.
Cherubim.
Cherubim. The work of a skillful workman. You shall hang it on 4 pillars of, that word, overlaid with gold, and their hooks being of gold, and 4 sockets of silver. You shall hang up the veil and the clasps, and you shall bring in the ark of the testimony where there within the veil. And the veil shall serve you as a partition between the holy place and holy place. So basically, what this is that back before Jesus, there was a veil, and I was doing some research and found out that it's about your hand width thick. It was extremely tall and all this stuff, and God existed behind this veil.
Yep.
He was perfection, and he could not be around imperfection. There's perfection and imperfection. It's not that God is like, I don't feel like being around you because you mess up. It's that it's like oil and water. In the presence of perfection, imperfection dies. So they can't be around each other. So God was behind this veil. It had to be thick, it had to be tall, so that there's no way. It was basically God protecting us from dying in the presence of perfection. And I was trying to figure out, so there's the holy place and the holy of holies. So basically, like, you know, the church, and then there's the holy of holies. Excuse me. All right, you can go to the next verse. All right, this is just, I'm not going to read all of this. Basically, I was trying to demonstrate Leviticus 16. This is, it says Aaron shall bring, it is a huge, the whole chapter 16 of Leviticus. I was trying to pinpoint one verse that explained what the priests had to do to cleanse themselves, to go be in the ability or to go be around perfection, get behind this veil to offer sacrifices and whatnot. And it was the whole chapter. I couldn't read one verse. I just, like, there was a million things that somebody had to do before they could go behind. And what they would actually do, I was trying to find this verse, but they would tie bells around the highest priest's ankles, and that way when they went behind the veil, if they were not cleansed the right way, then they could pull the body out. But what I was thinking about on the way here, actually, is I realized God is not looking at these people that go behind the veil and go, you did not do this right, zap. That wasn't it. God literally gave them chapters of instructions on what to do so they wouldn't die. He was like, please follow these, don't die. It's because, you know, it's like a kid. Again, it's like a kid. You please do this, don't die, please, like, understand you need to wear your seatbelt. You know, and that's really, I look back at the Bible, and you know, so many Christians, they use the Bible as, like, you know, a rule book. It's like, here's the rules, this is what you're supposed to do so that you can be a good Christian. And that's twisted. It's so weird, because I realized a couple months ago that the Bible is actually, God's like, hey, here's how to be happy. I'm going to be happy? Put me first. Not because he's selfish. I used to wonder why God would want to be first. Like, why, you know, everything else is going to fail you. Your kids are going to fail you. Your husband's going to fail you. Your dogs are going to fail you. I'm going to keep on hard again. But everything is going to fail you. Your friends, your family, the people you rely on the most, they're going to fail you. Why? Because we're not perfect. So the only thing that we can trust that's not going to fail us is God.
Amen. So
if we have him first, then we're not going to feel like our life is falling apart when somebody else does something that wrongs us or hurts us. It's going to suck. It'll still hurt. But we won't feel like it's the end of our world. We won't be dying on the inside, wondering how we can get past another day. I struggle every day with not putting my kids first. I really do. I love my kids so much. But I know that one day they're gonna look at me and be like, "I hate you, Mom," because I didn't give them a cookie or something. I don't know. But you know, they're gonna say nasty things to me. I know it because teenagers, you know. But and that's gonna kill me. And if I don't have God first,
Amen.
then
Amen.
I'm not gonna know what to do with myself.
Amen.
Imagine these moms. This horrible, horrible, worst things that could happen. Who have kids that don't make it for one reason or the other. They get in a car accident. You know, horrible things. You notice that almost every time something like that happens, parents get divorced.
Yep.
It's because they don't know how to move forward. Understandably, I wouldn't know how to move forward.
That's right.
But if you've got God first,
That's right.
then that one thing is not going to blow up everything.
Amen.
No matter what it is, no matter how bad it is. And it's not that God is like, I need to be first. It's like, please understand that everything else is not guaranteed. This is life. This is the world we live in. You know, and we wonder why God lets bad things happen, you know. But it's like I said, it's like we're crying. We don't understand. We have that glass in the kitchen. We don't understand why we keep to look at it when we keep touching it. And he's like, it's going to cut you. But he doesn't, we don't understand how that works. We don't understand. You know. Anyway, so going back to the veil, you know, the veil was perfection. He was separating himself from us so that we could stay safe. Because sin cannot exist in the presence of perfection. It just can't. It's like, you know, it's like oil and water. They can't mix. It just, it's not that God's specifically saying, you're not perfect. But it's just that perfection cannot exist. Light can't exist where dark exists. It's just not possible. And so, what is really the significance of why I'm saying all this? You can go ahead and finish first. Matthew 27:51. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook and rocks split. This is my favorite part of the Easter story. Because, I mean, can you imagine? As upset as God was that, you know, his son died, God was, you know, perfection. And, you know, Jesus was God. He was that perfection part of God. And he sacrificed perfection so that he could exist within perfection. When that veil was torn, I can't imagine how excited God was. Because he no longer had to stay behind a wall.
Amen.
Away from everybody he loved and cared about.
Amen.
Because of the fact that he was perfect. He no longer had to stay behind a veil. He could be with us.
Amen.
He could be, because he created us. He, you know, has a plan. He no longer has to hear about it from the priests. He no longer has to,
That's right.
you know, he can be with us. And, you know, of course, it was, I think, after Jesus ascended, a few days after Jesus actually ascended into heaven, when the Holy Spirit, I think it was like fiery tongues and you know, all that stuff. But the Holy Spirit. And so now, God is in us. Not only is he around us now, he's in us. Like,
Amen.
in us.
Amen.
So, I mean, that was such a beautiful thing that he couldn't be around us. But now because of Jesus' death, he can be in us. He can talk to us. He can have a relationship with us.
That's right.
You know, and all these things that we're so excited to do. You know, I was telling somebody I was watching The Passion of the Christ. And I have a hard time watching that movie. I will say. It's hard. Because the thing is, just like we don't understand how God can talk to me and talk to you and talk to you all at the same time, we don't get that. Just like that. I heard, you know, I've always heard growing up that Jesus was thinking about me when he died on the cross. And I was like, how is that many names running through his brain at one time? But just like he can talk to me and talk to you and talk to you, when I watch The Passion, I look at it and I go, he was just thinking about me. Just me. Nobody
That's right.
else. And he was just thinking about you and just thinking about this only person he's thinking about. And he did that for me so that I could have that with him. Because he wanted me to have that relationship with him. He wanted me
That's right.
that much. That he didn't go through just some, like we saw in that video, he didn't go through some stoning or beheading or whatever. He went through a brutal day of torturing that.
That's right.
Just to show us who
That's right.
and he was perfection. And the thing is, you can go ahead to the next one. So, going back to what is perfection. 2 Corinthians 12:9, I actually found this when I was writing my sermon, and it's perfect. It says, he has said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is perfected in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, I will rather boast about my weakness, so that the power of Christ may dwell in me.
That's right.
I loved that because I realized God sent Jesus because he doesn't expect us to do it. He doesn't expect us to be able to do everything right. That's why Jesus died, was so that we could, so that we could exist in the same, we could have that relationship, so we could talk to him. Because he doesn't expect us to be perfect. He knows we're not. I mean, Jesus was here on earth. He knows it was difficult, And so he doesn't expect us to be perfect, but the thing that I loved about this verse was my power is perfected in weakness. Something I realized was that a lot of couples, if you ever notice, are opposites. We wonder why that is, and me and Silas were actually talking to Jeff, and we realized that where I am weak, Silas is strong. And where Silas is strong, I'm weak. I am not good at anything creative at all. And he is. I handle stress well. He does not. So basically, and I realized that that's what's beautiful about this, though, is we're not perfect. But because we have him in us now, we are perfect.
Right.
We're not expected to be perfect. But, he wants us to try it, and that's where, so be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. He's not telling you, be perfect. He's telling you, you are perfect. Because your heavenly Father is perfect, and he's in you. And you're now whole. Wherever you are weak, he is strong. I hate public speaking. Hate it. But God apparently doesn't mind. I realized that, so when I go to depend on anything else but God, when I'm struggling with something, this is funny because this just happened 5 minutes ago. I was getting ready to come in here and do my sermon, and I was about to go outside and smoke a cigarette and pray and talk to God before I came in here. Well, naturally my lighter died. So, God, I wrote this down here. Depending on something else besides God is stealing from his ability
Amen.
to show himself.
Amen.
Because I realized, I'll give you an example. There's somebody that I know that has social anxiety. I'm not going to name him. And so when he knows he's about to be in a social situation, he drinks a little bit because it loosens him up. So I can talk to people. Now, I got a question. If he went in to those social situations and prayed beforehand, didn't drink, and went in and did well and did great, he would know absolutely without a doubt that it was God.
Amen.
So he's stealing from God's ability to show
Amen.
himself.
Amen.
So my bottom line today is that, nobody's perfect, and it's okay that you're not perfect. Don't beat yourself up. It's okay. it's okay also to not be okay with our sin. I'm not saying to be okay with your sin or be okay with,
That's right.
whatever. But it's okay when you mess up. Because you know what? There's tomorrow. And, because of Jesus, of God's, and Jesus' sacrifice, we're not going to be struck down with lightning when we say a cuss word. You know what I'm saying? It's okay that we're not perfect, because
That's
through
right.
Him we can get better. Through Him we can better ourselves. We're not stuck with who we are. If you're not happy with who you see in the mirror, well, guess what? Get up and talk to God and change
Amen.
it. It takes time, but with
Amen.
Him we can better ourselves.
Amen.
And I went back and I was trying to think about something, because I was still a little bit confused as I was doing research. And so God and sin perfection and sin cannot still exist in the same place. Understand? But our sin is already taken care of.
Amen.
It's covered. It's good. It's already wiped clean. If I sin tomorrow, guess what? It's already covered. And through that, our sin, or the things that we do that messed up, can also help make this beautiful masterpiece.
Amen.
I'm not saying that, God intends for us to sin, but I'm saying I messed up and made stupid decisions. Lots of stupid decisions. But my story, God can turn around and use it
Amen.
to help other people that have been in the same situation.
Amen.
So it's okay. And that's where I go back and I go, oh, I'm glad I didn't go into the kitchen and pick up that shattered glass. I can see where my pain and my hurt now, looking back, I can see where my pain and my hurt is now useful to help other people going through the same situations. And I thank God for it. I thank God that I've struggled as much as I have. I really do, because a lot of things that I've gone through have changed who I could have been. I see other people in my life who, who take everything for granted, and don't have, don't appreciate the little things. Because I was broke, I had to pay dimes for pizza to eat that day, I now fully appreciate when I'm able to hand them a $5 bill again. And not look completely retarded at the Little Caesars when I'm handing them a handful of dimes. But I realize that everything that I've been through has made me appreciate everything I have. My Aunt Kelly sent us pots and pans. Thank you, Aunt Kelly. When we were living at that apartment, and it felt like Christmas. I was telling, I had spoken in a sermon before where I said, I felt like Christmas. And, I was so excited that we got pots and pans. And somebody looked at me and was like, do you know how much your Christmas presents costed? Yeah. And I said, you don't understand. It's not that, I know an iPod's great, but, what I'm saying is the appreciation for the little things came from not having anything. And that makes life so much more beautiful, because, God, when you're dying and you find out you've got another day, you appreciate every breath.
Amen. Amen.
But, getting off topic. Anyway, so what I was saying is Jesus' blood has covered our sin and can make us into a masterpiece. Somebody that struggles with alcoholism, and they wake up one day and they decide they want to change. Well, guess what? You can. Through God, you can help and substitute what you're depending on. Because, people that struggle with addictions and stuff, they're filling something, some kind of void that should be filled with God in the first place. And so when somebody's struggling with something and they decide to put God in that place, well, guess what? Not only can you heal from that, but you can heal other people. You can help heal other people. You can help people who don't even know they need help yet, and explain to them what that leads to, And so through our sin, we're able to help people. And like I was saying earlier, it's okay not to be okay with our sin. But, you know, we have a desire to change for it. And like I said, that the Bible is not a rule book that you're supposed to beat people over the head with and you're supposed to stand up straight and feel like you're at boarding school. You know, it's used so wrong. It's a key to happiness. It's literally like, put me first because, you know, what I was saying earlier. And don't lie because you're going to get caught and it's going to hurt when you get caught and the consequences are worse. You know, it's all twisted into making you feel like you have to follow these rules, but it's just like, please do these things because you'll be happy. That's how you'll be happy. So we have a desire to change because we want to be happy. We realize we're not happy with whatever we're doing wrong. And so because we have that desire to change, you know, we have to realize that means it's okay not to be okay. You know, it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be hurting. You don't have to go into church and fake it because you don't want the person next to you at church to find out that you're, like, whatever you're doing. You know what I'm saying? You don't want the person at church to find out that you're drinking again or you're whatever. You know, so it's okay to not be okay and talk to people about what you're going through. You know, I wish I did. I felt like I didn't have anybody to talk to, and I did. I just wasn't looking in the right place. You know, I can talk to God, bottom line. If you have nobody to talk to, you got God. And like I was saying earlier, he'll weep with you. He will. He understands. Sorry, I lost my place. But you know, again, no one is perfect. Nobody has that perfect life. Even those people that you want to be like, that you seem like have it all together, those are probably some of the loneliest people you meet. Because they feel like everybody wants what they have, and they don't even know why they're upset. They don't know what's going on. Because they can't pinpoint, I'm upset because I don't have money for rent. They can't pinpoint. They're upset, and they don't know why. And they have nobody to talk to about it. Because everybody takes it for granted. So bottom line, nobody has that perfect life. You know, what you think that you need is not what you need because those people are hurting too. And because that's life. Everybody's dealing with something. Everybody's hurting. Even if they're really good at hiding it.
Amen.
And just because your life is different though. Me and Silas grew up two completely different lives. But we can still help each other. Just because his life is different from mine doesn't mean that I can't help him.
Amen.
And doesn't mean he can't help him succeed.
Amen.
Doesn't mean that we can't be together and grow closer to God because we struggle with different things. It's almost better when you've got two people who struggle with different sins and different lifestyles to help each other because you may not be able to relate as well, but you're able you're able to see things clearly. You know what I'm saying? If I look at a situation that I've never been in, I'm looking at it objectively. If I'm looking at somebody in the same situation as me, it's going to be a little bit harder because instead of trying to help them, I'm going back to my hurt, my pain. So don't think that because somebody is not relatable to you and because they're going through a different sin or going through different trials that you can't help them, those are probably the people that you can help more. You know, that starts with being honest with each other. In church, talking to people. That's what I love about the church. I've always loved is that we have that, you know, good half hour that we talk about what we're going through. I love it because I had never experienced that. We were always, you know, always doing great. Always doing great. I had somebody I was talking to recently. It freaked me out a little bit. I walked up to her, and I had not seen her in a while. And I asked her, I said, how you doing? She goes, not good. like took a step back. I was like, that was not the answer I was looking for. You always say, I'm good, but I'm tired, or I'm good, but, you know. She's like, I'm not good. And then I just talked to her about it, and I was a little just taken back for a minute about her honesty. Like, you know, normally, you eventually get into what you're doing. She was straight up, not doing well. And it was so good to hear, though, because, not that she wasn't doing well, but that, you know, to hear somebody just be completely honest with me and be completely open with me and tell me exactly what she was going through. And I knew I knew what to say, I knew how I could help her then, and because of the fact that she was honest with me, I was able to be honest with her, and we could help each other.
Amen.
If she was saying she was doing good, then just kind of quietly, eventually got into the fact that she was struggling, I would kind of go on it off, because it's just mid-conversation, something that she's gone through. That was the first thing she said. And so it caught my attention. And so I was able to pay attention to what she was saying. We need to be honest with each other. I know we can't do that with everybody, but it's probably not a good idea when your boss asks you what you're doing, you need to go into your problems, but, we've got to be honest with each other here. Because if we don't help each other here, we're not gonna be able to help anybody else. If you're struggling and hurting in church, and you don't have the family behind you, and because they don't know what you're going through, you can't be mad at people for not helping you through your hurt if they don't know you're hurting. You can't be mad at God and mad at your friends and mad at your family if they don't know you're hurting and they're not responding to your hurt. Like, I mean, naturally it doesn't make sense. You know, if I don't know that somebody's hurting and then they get mad at me because I didn't call them when their dog died or whatever, I didn't know that, you know. So we got to be honest with each other. We can't help other people as a church unless we help ourselves. We got to be a support system for each other, so that when one person is not doing well, the rest of us is helping them get back up to where they should be spiritually, emotionally, physically, whatever. And that way we can help other people, because we don't have to worry about feeling alone while we're trying to help them. Last thing I wanted to say is only God is perfect. He's the only one that's perfect. But through Him and the people He puts in our lives, we will be exactly where we are supposed to be. And only then will we be happy with what life He has chosen as the perfect life for us.